In chapter 972 of One Piece, the people of Wano react to the truth that Odin saved thousands of lives through his dancing. Some of them beg Orochi to stop the execution, but he silences them with arrows. Realizing that his death is inevitable, Odin instructs the scabbards to survive and open Wano's borders. He explains that the Kozuki clan were the ones who isolated Wano centuries ago to protect it from a gigantic power. However, a certain person is traveling through 800 years of time to help Wano and the whole world. Odin wishes to open the borders before their arrival and support them. Raizo declares that if this is Odin's dream, it's the scabbard's dream as well. Odin survives the boiling, but Orochi decides to shoot him anyway. Odin launches the scabbards away with a final command to open Wano. Kaido gives his regards to Odin, then shoots him in the head. Meanwhile, Toki learns of Odin's death and reads a letter with his final instructions. In the letter, Odin states that a gigantic war capable of separating the oceans will surely break out in 20 years. He says that new protagonists who can defeat Kaido will appear. Finally, he instructs Toki to use her powers if he dies. The chapter ends with Toki tearing the letter and telling Odin to look closely 20 years into the future. So, big chapter.
A lot to dissect there.
Yeah. Before we really get too deep in discussion questions, I just want to see, Devin, what's your reaction to the whole Hour of Legends now that we've seen the whole thing? So, I mean, this seems like a great example of one of One Piece's epic moments that isn't a fight. So is this one of the most epic scenes we've seen in One Piece so far?
Absolutely. You have to put it up there with the best. The build up to it was beautiful. I mean, we all know that I complained a little bit about the pacing, and now I'm sitting here at the end of this and I regret everything I said. Just reading those panels, it's rare that you get something that heavy, very so often in series comes those heavy moments, and reading that, it actually gets the emotions going when you're reading something like that. And that's, I think, the beauty of what Oda does. We get to this point now, and even all the minor details, it's revealed he is a D as well, dies with a smile on his face. All that little stuff is just, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. It's not confirmed that he's a D, I don't think, but it does kind of like he dies with a smile on his face. I think it's presumed that he may be a D, like has a will of D or whatever. So
toss the hat on for that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say you need a hat.
Well, okay, so there was a lot. I'll have to, but with this dying with the smile on his face thing, I definitely thought like, oh, he's right there with like Luffy and all them. So I put that together. But yeah, I mean, I could be wrong with that.
I mean, that was incredible. That panel, like just a small detail, like you were saying, like gets boiled in oil for a whole hour while holding the pot in his bag, and then just gets popped in the head anyway, and then still dies with a smile on his face.
Well, and I thought it was kind of cool. I was right last week about a little thing. In the end, Kaido's a pirate, and he respected Odin for doing that. And it seems like he would have let him go. Almost like it seems like he would have lived up to his end of the deal, and he just says, okay, this is his call, so I'm gonna end it for you, but kind of respect for doing this. So I thought that was a big moment.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw like Kaido's pirate honor, so to speak, when he said, Sar Hag, I killed her because she interfered in the fight. Like it wasn't for maybe people who thought that that was part of Kaido's plan, or that Kaido was in on that trick. He wasn't, and he killed her because she interfered. So
that's what he was referring to. I wasn't sure which old hag he was referring to. Okay.
Oh yeah, he kills her for turning into Momonosuke and fooling Odin.
Yeah.
So huge respect to Kaido. In the end, I think that again, Oda. The beauty of Oda is, well, let's be honest. He's a pirate. Yes, he's an evil pirate, right? But he is.
I have more respect for him, but I had none.
Right, and I guess what I'm saying is Oda still, no matter what, I guess if you put a spectrum of pirates from good to evil, he still shows that in the end, they're all pirates. The core of this is that they all have this bond of being pirates,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely gives us more insight into Kaido and his personality. And it's more character development kind of in the background while they're going through this whole backstory. So
Yes. I have a question real quick. Do we know Kaido's motives? Like all the other people aside, do we know Kaido's pure motives of doing all of this and being like the puppeteer to all this stuff?
it's been
Thought it was
I
just
mean, they haven't explicitly said too much, but he's definitely trying to die. I mean, he seems to be just so. I mean, he's there's an element of nihilism to him where he's so strong and just doesn't really care about anything that much. Like that's what I took this whole thing as. Like he doesn't care too much. It's like, oh, we want Oden dead. Okay, like I'll kill him, or I'll let him go. Like whatever. It's just he's just a overpowered drunkard who, he's very nonchalant about everything.
Actually, I guess thinking
He's
back,
so bored with life that he's like, well, let me see if I can just find a way to kill myself. I'm this powerful. Like, let me just cause as much destruction and chaos as possible until I finally find someone who's strong enough to entertain me, pretty much, and maybe
Right.
even kill me.
well, and I guess that's why thinking about it, doesn't he state that he wants to bring a war to the world? Like he says he wants to bring a great war or whatever to the world. So maybe that is his motive in the end, like bring all these strong people together and see if one of them can kill me. And if
Yep.
not,
yeah.
I'll just go back to drinking.
Yeah. I think he's really motivated by boredom
Amen.
and maybe even depression. Just
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think he needs some sort of entertainment, and that's why he's just trying to stir all this conflict in the world. So, my next question. So, Odin says that a certain individual has been traveling through 800 years of time to save Wano and the world. So, we know from a previous chapter that he's referring to Joy Boy. But is it now safe to assume that Joy Boy and Luffy are somehow the same person? And I'll ask you that, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's becoming more and more clear. I mean, it obviously isn't stated outright, and I don't think it will be for a little while, but all these little hints and all the time connections that we've been seeing more recently, especially since the time skip, it all seems to align towards just Luffy. All these events, all this stuff that seems to be adding up to this big cataclysmic event, or whatever event. I absolutely think that at this point it's almost a sure bet that it's Luffy.
So I wanted to say something on that point. If we really do feel One Piece is Luffy, right? This is just a very minor detail. But wouldn't that also mean that Shanks in the end found the One Piece? I mean, I know we said Ace did, and then kind of with that, all the other little details of what happened.
I mean, a lot of people found the One Piece if Luffy's.
But like, because in my mind, I guess like, yeah, okay, so a lot of people, but like the main three who found it then would be like Sabo, Ace, and Shanks, right? Because those three were kind of the people who made him want to go out and be a pirate and kind of like fulfill. Not saying, I guess if it's destiny, he was going to do it anyways, but like those three were the people who really pushed him in his young age to like go out and explore and kind of do everything. I don't know. It was just a little thought that I had. Like Shanks, maybe that's Shanks' big important thing in this whole thing is like he motivated Luffy to go out and start this adventure.
So I'm not really sold that Luffy is the One Piece. I think it's a nice idea to play around with. It was like in the chapter we talked about with the Roger flashback. It almost seemed like they were implying something along those lines. So what I think more is that the One Piece is something that's really only valuable to Joy Boy, right? Because Roger had stated that he came too early. So my guess is that somehow, well, I could go one of two ways. Either the One Piece is just everything you learn at Laugh Tale and only Joy Boy can make use of it. Or maybe my other theory I've touched on before is that the One Piece is a means for Joy Boy to control the ancient weapons somehow. It's something that somehow gives him dominance over, or the ability to wield the ancient weapons. I think based on what we know of the big mysteries of the series, I think they have to really tie together somehow. And this is me kind of starting to try to piece those things together, right? We've got at Laugh Tale, you've got the One Piece, you've got the meaning of D, you have the truth about the ancient weapons, you have the reason for Wano's isolation in the world, which we're learning a lot about now. And then there's one more mystery that I think I'm forgetting that you learn at Laugh Tale, but I think those things have to kind of fit together somehow. So it seems like the one, it's really whatever you get at Laugh Tale is for Joy Boy, is what I think. And it seems like Luffy is Joy Boy in some capacity.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, there's then later in the chapter, Oden mentions that there's going to be a gigantic war capable of separating the ocean in the next 20 or so years. So, Devin, is he referring to the Wano War, or is he referring to the final conflict of the series? Because if this is the final conflict of the series, that would be the first glimpse we've gotten at the end game, and that would really be the first hint.
And
so,
you guys
huge.
know, I mean, we've talked off camera that I feel that the final conflict is going to be a good guys versus bad guys war. Like, pick a side, and kind of like a lot of the characters, if not all the characters we've seen that are still like somewhat in play in this universe, will be picking a side in that war, and there will be one. I think that is the one they're referring to. But I mean, because I don't, unless there's Wano is going to be a huge war. I don't think it's endgame war yet. I mean, we still have so many other pieces to tie up. I mean, all the stuff that is going on behind the scenes, like there's so much stuff that needs to be tied up yet. It's almost impossible for him to try and do an endgame war right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think they're two separate things, no matter what. I was just wondering if the war Oden was referring to is the one that's coming up right now, or the one that's going to end the series.
Oh, I think end the series. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the latter. But this is extremely exciting to see that in words right now, because we'd all assumed that this series was going to end with a gigantic war involving everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But we had never had that confirmed in any capacity, as far as I know, until now. So I'm just very excited to see that, okay, now we know that's coming.
Right.
It's going to involve probably literally every character we've seen so far in the series. And the events that happen here directly tie into that, because it's critical for the borders to be open, for it to prepare for this gigantic conflict that's coming later. We still don't know all the details, but Oden knows that this is a huge deal that has relevance to the rest of the world, and the mysteries of Laugh Tale is that the borders of Wano need to be open in order for Luffy to get there and win that war. And that's somehow going to set them up to succeed in the final conflict.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, because the thing I was looking for, I can't believe I was forgetting this, the revelry. That we haven't got any answers from that since we've hopped off of that. And there are so many things that we need answered from there as well. I mean, let alone Blackbeard, but Dragon, and where is Jinbei at? Like all of these little things too, they need to be tied up before we can even move on. But you know what that means. Great War at the end. Hockey Laboon's coming back.
I'm just so happy if that's actually true. Like that's one of my few theories, but like, oh man, I was so
a little
happy.
Side note. I was looking him up because we were talking about him. He was a character, and it's been so long since I read that part that I haven't really thought about him in a while. He's huge.
Yeah.
There's a tunnel system inside him to get like the ships through.
There's a whole arc inside of him.
I completely it was crazy. I completely forgot about all that. He'll be a monster on Luffy's side,
dude. Yeah, because like Blackbeard has the guy with the devil fruit where he can turn into a ship, I think, right? So
wait, I don't know if that's his devil fruit. I thought he was giant.
I thought
his nickname was like the warship or something.
I will have to go back and look. I was under the impression that he transformed into a ship somehow, and that's how they got there. But then that wouldn't really make sense with devil fruit powers, because it's a devil fruit. He would just sink. It'd be the most useless ship ever.
I was just going to say.
Well, maybe turns you into a plane, so it's very possible.
There's no water in the sky.
What if he flies through a cloud?
Yes,
what if he flies through clouds?
But I'm just saying, it's possible that he actually turns into something.
Even more important.
Right, but if he turns into a ship, he's just going to sink, I would think. Unless, there's some reason why he doesn't. I don't know.
Maybe it's the one devil fruit that rule does not apply.
That
he is a
that
ship
has
person and ships
buoyancy.
float.
Or as a ship, he can float, but as a normal person, he cannot. The tragic irony. As his ship form, he can sail the 7 seas, but he can't step foot in a pool if he's a person.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, well, I mean, none of this is confirmed, so maybe we shouldn't be speculating about this stuff.
right?
Wild speculation.
I could be completely wrong on that. So okay, in the letter we see that Odin sent Toki, it seems like Toki's prophecy might actually be information that she received from Odin and not actually her own prophecy, because he's telling her that there's going to be this giant conflict in 20 years from now where, you know, they absolutely need to succeed. And so do we think that, Connor, do you think that Toki came up with the prophecy using her own powers or information from Odin or some combination of the two? Because the only thing we haven't seen is she specifies in her prophecy that there are going to be 9 samurai who go up against Kaido and go up against Orochi and defeat him, or Kaido. I forget exactly what she says, but that information was not specified in Odin's letter. So, yeah, what do you think?
We don't know if how much she knows from the executions. We don't know necessarily that she is aware that the red scabbards survive, but I'm leaning more towards that she got it from Odin and, you know, kind of made it into this prophecy, so quote unquote, to almost, you know, kind of bigger stakes in a way. You know, it's a prophecy, it's like this big expectation that you'd have with it. And so I'm only saying that if she knew that the red scabbard survived, that would be my justification for how she had that information.
Yeah, but I mean, we know that it's not going to be. Well, we don't think it's going to be the nine red scabbards of old who are the samurai who take down Kaido, right? I mean, we don't know.
That's exactly what she said. The 9 samurai, right?
Right. But it's not the same as Odin's 9 red samurai. No. Well, what is it? She said something about they would be dressed in red or something like that, but we don't know. I mean, that was kind of vague, right? It could just be like.
Well, I just thought the samurai. I thought the samurai part was the implication that it was like that they would be the 9 samurai.
So you think that the 9 red scabbards, Odin's 9 red scabbards, are going to be the ones that take down Kaido?
Well,
I think
it'll be that they take him on. I think when, like, again, it's a prophecy, so you got to remember prophecies are meant to be vague. Game of Thrones 101. You got to read between the lines. So
right. Well, I mean, the prophecy aside, like, what do you think is going to play out? Who are those 9 going to be?
I think that it's going to be the 9 red scabbards, and think that obviously they're going to have Luffy and Zoro involved, and I think Luffy will be the one to defeat Kaido, or maybe Zoro, you know, can cut him. But I don't see. I'm not saying that the 9 red scabbards are going to beat him. I think it's more of a broad, you know, that they will defeat Orochi. You know, they're going to overcome the oppression. Not necessarily that those 9 are going to be the ones to swing and, you know, strike the killing blow.
I think you could see the 9 red scabbards going to defeat Orochi and maybe possibly men of Orochi. But I think when it comes to Kaido and that crew, we are going to see, you know, Luffy, Zoro, and the gang take those guys on. I think that's the big, like, we have to go back and see if the prophecy is saying she saw 9 against or taking down Orochi, then I think that means like the 9 red scabbards. Because if you think about it realistically, yes, Kaido overall has done a lot of stuff to the 9 red scabbards. I mean, he's intertwined with this whole story, but Orochi and them, that's where that beef is. And all the other stuff is like the beef between Luffy and Kaido. You know, so it's more appropriate to have the 9 red scabbards going after Orochi and defeating him, while on the other side of that, you have the pirate crews battling, you know, between Kaido. Because I wanted to ask you guys, do you see it being straight up like I mean, obviously, possibly a couple people versus Kaido because he's so powerful. But if not, do you see like a straight up fight between Queen Sanji, Zoro, King, Luffy, Kaido? Like, do you
I
see
hope
it possibly
so.
playing
So-
out like that?
I think, I mean, it's going to be 9 versus Kaido, I think. And I mean, sorry, going back to the prophecy a little bit, just to clarify, she prophesied that 9 samurai would defeat Kaido and Orochi. So, and I have to completely disagree. I think the 9 people of the present are going to be different people than the 9 red scabbards of old. I think that's where the vagueness of the prophecy comes in, where it looks like it's not going to play out that way, but then it's like, oh, it was vague. It's actually these 9 people, not the ones that you thought. So it's either, I think, going to be Luffy and his crew versus Kaido, or Luffy and the Supernovas versus Kaido, or just some other combination of 9 of the strongest good guys on Wano fighting Kaido. And that could later, devolve into a one-on-one fight with Luffy and Kaido, where Kaido's weakened and Luffy's enough to take him on.
Right.
Something
And that
like
wasn't
that.
like a theory or
But-
anything. I think that was just like a fun, thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think there have to be 9 people different. It could include people from the 9 red scabbards of old, but it's going to be a different group that goes up against Kaido and defeats him.
Right.
I guess we'll just
But-
have to see.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, I want to touch on Toki's powers a little bit, because I think that's the big wild card that they're really kind of glossing over. They're not really, it cannot be as straightforward as, oh, we sent these people in the future and these people we didn't, and now Toki's dead. I think I think Oda is being purposely vague with how Toki's powers work, so that we'll see how they actually influence events in the present and in the past for the events to come. Because the chapter makes it seem like the flashback's over. It makes it seem like they're jumping to present day.
Yeah.
Don't
It
know
is,
if that's the case, but if they really are jumping to present day, that means that Toki's powers have to have some big impact on the events that play out in the present, and we're yet to see that. So the question I wanted to ask Devin is, I mean, what do you think? How do you think Oden actually intended her to use her powers? Because he doesn't specify in the letter how he wants her to use her powers. We know how she did use her powers, or at least we know some of it. She sent a few people to the future to help them escape. But is that how Oden really intended her to use her powers? What was he thinking there?
So before, I mean, I guess with that answer, I want a counter question here. Did you guys pick up that she read the entire letter, or did you pick up that she ripped it up while like it got to the part where he was talking about if I die and she just ripped it up?
I think she read it and then ripped it up.
I think
Okay.
she read it all. We might not have seen everything that she read.
Okay,
But I think
gotcha.
she did read it all.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I'm not sure. I haven't thought too deeply into that. That was something that I've been glossing over as well. When it comes to her powers, there's a lot of questions that how he's going to wrap that up, because it's something, it is something that gets dangerous if he's talking about how, like, if it expands on her powers and she can jump back and forth or like whatnot. Like, there are a lot of holes that could come from her power, right? Or a lot of like what ifs, like, why didn't she just do this? Why didn't she just do this? So I could also see him being purposely vague in the sense of like, hey, she has this power. She was able to send them forward. This is where we're at now. Like, this is, I don't want to touch on that too much. You get what I'm saying? Like, kind of like Rick and Morty time travel stuff up on the counter in the garage. Like, just like it's not touched.
If it was any other author, then yes, I would agree with you, and I would hope that's not Oda. If Oda brings time travel into the series, he knows exactly what he's doing. He has a plan for that, and he is going to do his classic slow reveal over time, put out some threads, bring them back together later. We're done with the backstory. It was all about Odin. Now we're going to jump to the present. You've forgotten about Toki. You assume you knew everything there was to know, and
Bam.
you knew nothing. You did not know anything. Like,
And
that's-
that would be great. I mean, if he does that, I definitely could see it. I just think it's too, that is something that's so open-ended, I guess, in a sense. You can't predict that. It's all going to be how he wraps that up specifically, because we could jump into a bunch of different time travel scenarios, but that's a rabbit hole that we could go down for hours on end, saying like, okay, well, say it's revealed she can go back and forth or something. Like, why not just go back and get Odin before he dies? Or like, like there's always that kind of stuff when it comes to time travel. So if he does write more into this, I'm sure you're right. It's Oda. It will be an airtight like devil fruit power. You know, possibly something where she could only go forward, and that kind of
Terminator style.
Yeah, she could only go forward right to a certain amount of time, certain point, and then that's why that devil fruit can still be passed down, because it's not like they can go back and forth, and they're not invincible or immortal or anything like that. Like you don't get this devil fruit and then just transcend time. But like, I mean, it all depends on where he wants to go with it.
Yeah. Connor, you got any final thoughts about that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If nothing else, he is a man of detail and depth, and I do think this is the end of this flashback. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about, oh, you forgot about Toki's power. Boom. I think that's what we're about to see. Is we're going to flash back to the present. He's going to, get us caught up with fights or some kind of events going on right now. We're going to forget or stop thinking, wondering about Toki's power. And then boom, we're going to get that explanation when it fits into some kind of scenario that, explained, that gives it exposition perfectly. And we might get a flashback, we might not, but
yeah. So this is a good thing to leave off with our viewers. Please let us know what you think down in the comments below about what the implications of Toki's powers are going to be on the story in the present. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Off The Stoop. And we'll see you next week.